Hello, I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about episode 6 of series 20 of Taskmaster, and I think this was another really good episode. I thought we started off really strongly with Alex's bit at the beginning with like the mind reading thing, and it was like him editing Greg's words together. I thought this was really good. I thought it was a really strong joke from Alex, and yeah, I loved how much Greg loved it as well. So starting off as always with the prize task, and this time it was the thing Greg would most like to see Alex wearing, and I thought this was a fantastic category, one of the best ones they've done, one of the funniest ones. I loved Greg immediately setting it straight that like anything that was uncomfortable or dangerous for Alex would score quite well, so I loved that. I love that everyone put a good amount of effort into this one, and I'm not surprised that they put a lot of effort in considering how fun of a category it is. So we started off with Anya's, and I loved this. I thought this was really good. It was the massive hat with these sparkly strands falling down that she said was like quite heavy, and like it would be uncomfortable, but it's also like a cool thing. You've never really seen that sort of thing before, so I really enjoyed that one. I thought it was a really strong opener. We continued with the really strong prizes with Sanjeev's, who brought in a sari, and he set the stage very well by saying like this is going to be embarrassing for him to wear anyway, but imagine him wearing it in India, and like talking about how it's embarrassing and dangerous for him to wear it. And then there was all jokes about like Greg and Alex going on holiday together, so I liked the item and I liked the conversation and humour it brought as well. We then had Phil's, and I loved this one. I loved the like inventiveness behind it. So it was an outfit that would attract predators. So I liked that there was that sense of danger with it as well, like something that like could potentially kill you or attract dangerous animals. So there was like steaks and sausages and honey, which I thought he was going with like getting attacked by like bees or something, but no, his thing was getting attacked by Winnie the Pooh. But yeah, I thought all of that was really funny. I thought this was a really good creative one, and also simple as well. Like sometimes just simplicity wins, and yeah, putting a boiler suit on with a bunch of meat on it and honey is inherently funny, and the fact that it's Alex and the thing is that it's going to attract predators just makes it even funnier. So I thought this was really good. Maisie as well went for quite a simple one, and she was just straight to the point. It's Diana's revenge dress, and I thought this was hilarious. I thought it was really good. It's like an iconic like British thing, everyone knows it, so imagining Alex wearing it is very funny. So I thought that was really good as well. And as I said, just simple, like simplicity is good sometimes. Reese, however, kind of went a bit too simple. I liked his idea. I liked him linking it to Greg's teaching and saying that bad students could wear like the dunce's hat. But this was a cap with a propeller on. I don't think it was too creative. I think especially considering like Reese's prizes have been quite creative before, to bring in something quite simple and like not really fitting the brief as much as everybody else is, like not really taking advantage of this like fun prize category. I was a bit surprised by. I thought he'd be the one like jumping at this to create a really elaborate thing, and I think Alex like saying it's the one that he would want to wear just shows how it just doesn't quite match up to everybody else's. I liked the additional element of this task being that Alex will actually wear the task winner's outfit at the end of the episode. I think that's a really good thing to throw in, and I liked that. And I thought it just, when you're kind of thinking about everybody's prizes, imagining Alex wearing it, especially because you'll get to see it, is very funny. And I do think Greg made the right decision with the winners on this one. So he did give Reese 2 points by saying that nobody deserved 1. I would have been mad if Reese got 1. I think there is a big distinction between his and everybody else's. Anya got 3 points, and I did really like this one, so it's quite difficult. I did think it was really cool, but I think just imagining Alex in these really funny outfits just takes the edge for me. And I do think Hannah just puts so much effort into the prize task, and it doesn't always pay off all the time, which is a shame because I like that effort. Sanjeev then got 4 points for the sari, and then Phil and Maisie got joint first place and both got 5 points each. And I do agree with that. I think the revenge dress is a very funny thing to imagine Alex in. And also I think Phil's one is just so creative as well. So the way that they decided to do it was that Alex would wear the dress and then Greg would just throw meat at him at the end, which I love. I thought that was fantastic. Now on to the first proper task of the episode, and this one was to cut a single string to cause the greatest effect, and they only had 20 minutes to do this one. I do think this is one that we've kind of seen similar ones before. It's not like too much of an elaborate one. Like you're kind of imagining like relay effect things, like, you know, there's lots of different ways you could go with this, which I quite like. The contestants could be quite creative with it. And then you've also got like the actual effect at the end, and also like how to make the journey of that interesting, like how it gets to the effect. So yeah, I think I think this was a really good one. We started off by seeing Phil and Annie's attempts, and I enjoyed both of their attempts. They were very funny. So Phil, carrying on, I think, this destructive theme in this series. We had it last series as well with Jason, but I love that everybody is being a bit destructive on this one. He decided to take Alex's watch and place it below an anvil, that he then cut the string, the anvil fell on it, and broke the watch, and like actually damaged it as well. So I did feel bad for Alex, although they did like reveal in the studio that it did still work. It was just a bit messed up, like a bit dirty. Nobody wants to see their belongings get crushed by an anvil. But I thought this was really funny. I thought Phil was quite daring with this one, and did something that I think is a bit surprising, so I enjoyed that aspect of it. Anya had a similar idea by basically like winching something up and cutting the string for it to fall on something, and she decided to put glasses full of colourful paint powder, I think it was, and then like winch them over the house is what she aimed for, which I definitely think was a bit too ambitious, but it was impressive. She managed to get it over the weather vane. I wasn't expecting her to do it. The way I was kind of imagining, like seeing this one go, is her just keep failing to get it over and having to go with something a lot smaller. One thing that I did think let her down a little bit is that she could have lifted the glasses a bit higher up. I think they didn't go as high as I was expecting. I don't know whether it just got too difficult, I don't know, but I think that might have made a slight difference, although I don't think the effect would have changed too much. She did put a balloon underneath for the glasses to like smash onto and pop the balloon. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was good, but as she said, it just didn't have the effect that she thought it would. It just wasn't as big, and I definitely think maybe if it was a bit higher, or maybe she had another glass with another colour, or did so. I don't really know, but I thought it was fun, and I thought it was a good effort. Because yeah, the end of thing of them just like splashing a little bit of paint powder around the floor wasn't that great, but like I said, I think there was a lot of effort in this one, which I definitely like. We then saw Reese's, who took a completely different approach on this one and created like a little scene, and he decided to torture Alex using a frying pan that was on like a pendulum that was released when he cut the string. So I liked that aspect of it. It was very dramatic. I loved the accents. I loved like Alex playing along. The effects were quite good with like the blood and then the sausages like covered in ketchup. I don't even know what it was, or paint, like to resemble the intestines. I thought all of that was funny. And it was like comedic as well, with him revealing that he'd stolen cream eggs from Asda, and that's why he was being tortured to death. So I thought there was lots of funny parts to this one. And I think, again, it's like showing Reese's creativity as well. This is what I mean by saying there's lots of different ways you could go with this. Like every attempt you've had so far has been completely different, and Maisie and Sanju's ones were completely different as well. So Maisie's one definitely didn't go very well at all. She like equated greatest effect to most string used in the task, which I definitely don't really agree with. I get where she was going with it, but I just don't think it really helped her that much. So she made Alex leave the room and set up a trap for him when he entered, which I did like. I thought that was a good idea. And the way it was supposed to work was that he'd enter and one chicken would fall off and it would pull down another one and then knock over another chicken that would land on a plate, and then she would serve it to Alex. So I thought, great idea, but I just don't think it worked how she intended, and I just don't think she got the right idea of this task either. And I think one thing that they didn't bring up in the studio was that she cut the string way before like the attempt really happened, and I think, you know, there was a point in the task wording that said it was single piece of string, like one cut, and you know, they definitely did focus in on it on the edit, so I was surprised that nobody talked about it whatsoever. And yeah, I just thought that was a little bit weird, and the fact that it wasn't really mentioned either that she knocked over the last chicken, so like her thing didn't even work, and it just wasn't picked up on or really taken into that much account in the scoring. But I'll get onto the scoring in a bit. We then saw Sanjeev, and I really liked this one. I thought this was really funny. Lots of components to this one. So his first bit was a table that he cut the string and released falling onto an egg, which we then saw it miss. That in itself is funny. I did think there was a twist coming because I thought he's smarter than that. He would have it land on the egg. But of course this was like a fake thing, and the single cut of the string that let the table fall over also released a bunch of barrels and balls and things in the garden to fall down, aiming for an egg. I know there's a bit of like discussion about whether or not he intended to hit the egg, because the egg remained at the end, which was quite impressive actually. But I think the fact that the single cut of the string led to two things happening and it worked well. Like that string had to go really far to release, to go out of like the living room into the top of the garden. And I think to get it working successfully, that both the table fell over and the balls were released with one cut of the string, was really impressive. So I think even if he did just like mean to hit the egg or whatever, I still think it deserves to win. Because yeah, I absolutely loved the fact that he didn't hit the egg. I think he fully intended for it to hit the egg and the egg was going to be smashed. I think that was what was intended to happen. But I do think it works for him either way. If it had happened and smashed the egg, it'd be like, oh, so you thought it'd be that egg that's getting smashed, but it's actually this one. But the fact that neither of them were smashed, he then comes out with a spiel about being like the meaning of life or existentialism, whatever. So I think he played it very, very well. I love that when like he came out to see the egg hasn't smashed, because in my head I'm thinking he wanted the egg to be smashed. The fact that he like didn't crack, no pun intended, but that he just carried on with it and didn't smile, break a smile or anything like that, and just like went with the situation and managed to play it off really well. And like the slow-mo of all the balls and barrels missing the egg was just majestic. I thought it was so funny, especially when they like baited you into thinking one of them was going to hit the egg. Just really great edit on this one. So the way Greg scored this was that he gave Anya 1 point and Maisie 2. 100% these two should be the other way around. I think that is insane because Maisie's thing didn't even work. She cut the string way too early. I'm like so annoyed for Anya that she only got 1 point. I don't really think she deserves more than 2 points, but the fact that somebody's string thing didn't work and she scored lower than them, I just find that baffling. But yeah, that's how Greg scored it. Everything else I agree with. Phil got 3. Reese got 4 and then Sanjeev got 5 points. So I agree with the top 3, but Maisie and Anya should definitely be the other way around. So on to the next task. So this one was a 2-parter. So the first part was to write an autobiographical 10-word story. And we just saw everybody writing down their words. There were kind of funny bits with like Alex annoying Maisie or like Maisie getting annoyed at Alex. But then it, like when they were handed the second part, I'm really surprised at how many people were surprised there was a second part. Like I don't think that's going to be the full task, just to write 10 words down. I did think though that it was going to be they'd have to draw it to have like to do the story, because it looked like a lot of paper, so I thought they might be doing like a flip thing or something like that. But no, they had to communicate their story to the Taskmaster like through the windows. They couldn't leave the bridge. They had 10 minutes to prepare, but only 30 seconds to like communicate their story. So I do think this is a really good task. It's creative, but you also got to be like sort of logical about how you are going to get your actions across. And I absolutely love Sanjeev not preparing for this at all, just going straight in, but I think it does make sense with what his story was. So we did actually end up seeing Sanjeev, and I like the setup of this with seeing the contestants' full like 30 seconds or like their full story and then having Greg guess it. I thought that was a really good setup for this task. And it's very much like, it leaves it a bit more like to Greg's interpretation, and you know, I think they were quite flexible with it as well. Like they said, like if he gets the gist of it, then that's quite good. It's not like word for word what you get, but I did like that. I thought it was a good setup. So as I said, we started off seeing Sanjeev's attempt, and I thought his miming was really good. I guess like you can tell he's an actor, but I liked that it was really calm. They put like calming music in the background as well, so they definitely played onto that. But yeah, the thing that I got from this was just that he was a baby that was growing up into himself. That's the only thing I could get, and I thought I wasn't doing very well. But Greg guessed, child is born, grows up to be Sanjeev, which was kind of on my wavelength, which was actually very similar to what Sanjeev actually wrote down, which was, I was born Sanjeev, which I remain to this day. So I liked that. Like I said, it's like, he got the gist of it. I think it's very difficult to get that one specifically word for word. So I thought that was a really good attempt from both like Sanjeev and Greg's guessing. We then saw Maisie's, and yeah, she didn't have a great attempt at this one. So all I got from her thing was that she was annoyed at something, and something that was boring, which again is kind of what Greg got as well. He guessed, bored woman sarcastically indicates she didn't enjoy man's company, which I thought was a very funny phrase. But it was actually just that he keeps explaining the plot of the show I'm in, which is funny, and I love that the humour from this, for me particularly, came from just how annoyed Maisie was at like her past self for doing something so silly and not creating an actual story about her life or really anything to do with her life, just what she was feeling in that moment. Very funny, but I don't even think her interpretation of her story was very good either. Like all she got across was like bored. There was nothing like in like to go with like the actual words like he and like pointing at him. Like there wasn't really any like narrative to it, as Greg would say. We then saw Phil's, and I really liked his, and I was quite surprised that Greg didn't get that it was Preston, because yeah, even though the hand movements, I didn't understand what that was, but like he was mouthing, I thought very clearly Preston, and particularly that he's brought in prizes related to Preston before, he's mentioned it before. I thought that was fairly obvious, so I was a bit surprised that Greg didn't catch on to that. But apart from that, I only really got the like running away and like no money kind of aspect to it. But Greg did do quite well. So he guessed child born to circus runs away, returns when skinned, which I thought was really good. Again, like I said, very similar to what was actually written in terms of like the gist of it. So what Phil actually wrote down was Preston born, Preston raised, left Preston, it failed, came back to Preston, or something like that. But yeah, he revealed that like weird hand movement was Priest Town, which I do get, and I feel like he did the best that he could, but I feel like he could have done something with like praying hands or something like that as in addition, but I thought the mouthing got it across quite well though, so yeah, like I said, I'm surprised that Greg didn't get that. Rhys took a completely different approach that was quite impressive. So he decided to spray whatever spray that was there on the windows and write down his story. But unfortunately, even though I thought this was really good, like he was writing it, I guess, backwards, because it would have been through the mirror, it would have been backwards. So that was quite impressive that he managed to do that. But you just couldn't read it, which I'm surprised he didn't think about. It's unfortunate. I thought it was quite a good attempt. The only thing I could get was just when I was little, which is pretty much all Greg could get as well. And the thing with Rhys as well is I do think he could have mimed this one as well. So his sentence was, when I was little, I choked on Monster Munch crisps. Like, I do think he could have got across like the choking aspect of it. I think getting across Monster Munch crisps might have been quite difficult, but I feel like if he'd done the words and some actions as well, it might have helped. I don't know. I definitely feel like it could have been like a winner in terms of like getting it all right if like it just wasn't so bright, I guess. I guess that's what let him down. And finally then we saw Anya's, and Anya had the approach that I was thinking of in terms of like bullet points. That's what I thought would be the best approach, like basically doing like 10 words to describe your life. My words would have been completely different to hers though. Hers was so funny. So it was like born, Cats the musical, school, uni, trampolining, Anya dies, which I thought was so good, and I loved this one so much. I thought her miming was really good. Like, even though I didn't really get what she was meaning with it, I definitely didn't get Cats the musical, but I thought that her actual actions were really good because she just went quite simple with one word things a lot of the time. So I thought it was like studying rather than school and university, and I didn't really get the trampolining part. But like I said, like you got the gist of it. I thought it'd be like, you know, she was born, she had a cat, like a pet cat, she did the ballet, studied, and then I didn't really get what, I had no guesses for the trampolining part, but I think it was a good approach, and I thought it was very entertaining to watch as well. Like I said, her miming was good. I just love as well the studio banter between other contestants, like Sanjeev saying if she'd auditioned for RADA, and Anya taking that immediately as a compliment and saying, oh, he's in Paddington 2 as well, so you know that's a good sign, and him then retorting back that you took it as a compliment even though that wasn't meant to be. Like, I think just they are all working really well together. I just think it's a really fun studio environment. The contestants have like backed each other up at some points, they've gone against each other, they're complimenting each other, making fun of each other. It's just such a fun environment, and I just think it's a really, really strong cast as well. So the way Greg scored this, I do agree with. I think I'm definitely on his side on this one. So he gave Maisie 1 point, Rhys 2 and Phil 3. He then gave Anya 4 and Sanjeev 5. The only bit I'm kind of stuck between who I prefer out of Sanjeev and Anya's. I do like Anya's one. I think she got across a lot of things that were quite difficult to get across, and like Greg pretty much got the gist of everything that she wrote down, and he did with Sanjeev's as well. But I think because Sanjeev like wrote his sentence a bit differently than what you would expect, it just wasn't as accurate in my opinion as his attempt at Anya's. Even though neither of them were perfect, I just think she had some quite specific things in there which he did manage to get. So yeah, but I liked them both. I liked the simplicity in Sanjeev's, but I liked the energy of Anya's as well. So on to the last proper task in this episode, and this one was a really interesting one. So they had to wear the flippers correctly, and they were told slowest wins, which we haven't really had anything like that before. I think we've had tasks previously, like the milk one, it was in New Zealand, but it was also in series 15, where they had to hold the milk over the microwave. That was like longest time wins. But we haven't really had slowest time. So I liked that part of it, and I loved that it confused everybody as well. And I was expecting a twist and it to actually not be slowest wins. I was thinking, oh, maybe there's a hint saying it's like opposite day or something along those lines. So yeah, as I said, I was expecting something, but I do think the penalties were quite harsh, which we'll get onto a bit. It did really screw over some contestants as well. So we started off by seeing Reese and Sanjeev, who just did the task as intended, slowest wins, and they both did different approaches as well. My favourite attempt is Sanjeev's. It's just brilliant. I love when they have that sort of dedication to just leave the task. So he said he was going to go and go for lunch, a nice 1 hour lunch, and then go for a nap. Obviously he was actually doing tasks in that time, but he came back after 6 hours and just put the flippers on, and that was his attempt, and I love it. I love that sort of commitment to it. I thought it was just so funny. Reese, however, had a completely different attempt on how to do it the slowest, and was actually trying to do it the slowest, but didn't really do it that slow at all. So like I said, he was trying to do as slow as he could. He was lassoing the flippers off and just making his own little games, which I thought was very sweet, and I liked watching it. But even like, I was just sat there for some time. Like, he just kind of went straight into it and was just like doing the task consistently, but just doing his own things, like creating that chopstick ladder and saying he couldn't diverge from the path. Like, it was all very good, but he only took 16 minutes. Like, I think if it was me, I'd at least try and get to half an hour if I genuinely thought it was slowest wins. Even that doesn't feel like that long compared to some attempts that we've seen, like how long they've lasted. But yeah, so I was quite surprised, but I thought it was very entertaining as well. And obviously it was very obvious for us as viewers that there was a sign at the top saying open me, so I definitely knew there'd be some sort of additional rules. And I have seen some, like, not complaints, but some people picking up that the rule of like, oh, everything's on the task, like all the information's on the task, like doesn't apply, and that people should just take it from what the task says, and these are like additional rules. But I do think if it says slowest wins, like, while it could be a different sort of task, like, I would expect to never trust Alex and to always look for an additional clue or something like that. I wasn't expecting as much extra rules to this task as there was, but I definitely would have doubted the fact that it was slowest wins and tried to figure out what was actually going on. So then we saw Phil, Maisie and Anya, who all did see the sign that said open me and saw all the additional rules. Some people did see it a bit later than others, but Anya seemed to see it pretty much immediately. It might have been edited to not be, but from what we saw, I thought she saw it quite soon. Like, she obviously just took the approach of like slowest wins and just looked around, because there were little clues, like there was chopsticks on the floor for some reason, like there was the circle. There were things there that were a bit odd, so I think looking around the room was the best thing to do, and she did see the open me thing. Maisie also saw the sign quite early on as well, and also decided not to step in the ring, which actually worked quite well in her favour. But the actual rules, there's so many of them, was that every time you say flipper, flippers or flower, your time is halved. Every time one of your feet leaves the circle, your time is then halved as well. Every time you laugh, your time is halved. But then here's the big one, that they actually had to complete the task within 10 minutes. They had to put the flippers on within 10 minutes of entering the room, or they are disqualified completely. And then the last bit was, after reading this, you must immediately return to the circle and the flippers must be where they are when they entered the room. So any attempt they had to get the flippers out from where they were, they had to then put them back and basically start again. So yeah, those are definitely some harsh rules, and obviously this means, like, you knew Sanjeev and Reese would both be disqualified, but it still leaves 3 people basically competing for first, second and third. Anya's attempt, very, very strong performance. As I said, I think she spotted it quite early on, and then she just took her time within reason. So I thought, obviously I've got to mention her guessing 7 minutes exactly. So good. I thought that was really, really funny. And like she said, just very cool as well. But she managed to do her attempt in 9 minutes 25, which is so impressive. So close to 10 minutes that like you'd think she'd had a timer on her. But the fact that she didn't just makes it even more impressive. But she did say flippers quite a lot. She laughed a bit as well. So her time was halved 7 times to get 4.5 seconds. Maisie as well, I think, just really suffered from the fact that she didn't have a clock to read off. So she saw the thing quite early on and then just did the task. She didn't have the rule of entering back into the circle because she never actually entered it, which, as I said, worked in her favour on that part. But I think perhaps did screw her up because then she could just go grab the flippers and put them on. So she did complete it in 3 minutes 52, which is quite a short amount of time. And then it was half 10 times to get 0.22 seconds. Which is possibly the fastest anyone's ever completed a task. But I thought the editing of this as well, this editing of this task was just fantastic, with them reading out the rules and seeing like the mistakes they made and then all the mistakes that Sanjeev and Reese made as well. And then obviously Phil's attempt. The fact that he was just laughing the entire time was so funny. I would have loved to see like how many times he did actually break any of those rules. Like if he had completed it in time, like how many times it would have been halved. I would have been very interested to see that. As I hinted at just then, he didn't actually complete the task because he completed it in 10 minutes 5 seconds, which is so unfortunate. That is just so, I feel so bad for him. It was such a good attempt. He was being quite slow at the start, and then when he figured out what it was, he like did the task, but just wasn't in time. And to be just 5 seconds over, I would have been so annoyed at myself. But yeah, that means he also gets disqualified. So it's only Anya and Maisie scoring points. Maisie got 4 for her attempt, which is very impressive. And then Maisie got 4 for her attempt, which is very lucky. But then Anya obviously wins this task and gets the full 5 points, and I think very well deserved. I just love Anya's attempts at these because she seems very logical, but also she's also very funny at the same time, and she does wild things as well. So I think she's a really like big contender to actually winning this series. I think I said that last episode that she's the one that I'm kind of guessing is going to win. But yeah, I think she just got a really good approach to tasks. Now, on to the studio task. Now, I love this one. I thought this was really good. So they had to find the age of the mystery person. And again, there were quite a few rules on this one. They had to stay in their seats the entire time. They could only ask one question at a time, and it went from oldest to youngest in terms of who was asking the questions. And then the big one, they could only say 2 numbers each the entire time, which they were very strict on. And then the person behind the curtain could only answer yes or no, and their voice was altered as well. So you couldn't guess, I guess, like people's voices' age. So you couldn't get anything from that either. As I said, they were very strict on the numbers thing, like saying numbers. Phil immediately said 1, which I do agree with his one, like saying, oh, do you have 1? Like that is a number. But I think saying I would like, if you said I would like 2 and that being a number, I think is a bit dubious. I think it's a different word, it's a different spelling. So I probably would have let those ones pass, but I did think them having to really be careful with what they were saying made this task funnier, and probably dragged it on for a lot longer as well, because apparently this task like lasted over an hour, which is why the studio audience was so excited and cheering when they got it wrong, because they were sat there for ages listening to them try and guess these things that you'd want to shout things out. So yeah, like it was a very fun task, and I love the throwback to it being Quentin, who we've seen a couple times before, and it being a throwback as well to guess the age to win the wage, which is from series 17, which is like their mini game show that they made, and they like played the theme music at the end. So I love that. I love the throwbacks. It was so good, and also just the attempt and everybody like trying to be clever with it and trying to ask good questions, which I do think some of the questions that we saw were quite good at working out age without saying any numbers as well. So we had people asking, were you alive when the moon landing? Were you alive for the Cuban Missile Crisis? Can you ride the bus for free? So like that was really funny. Anya, I thought, obviously very smart, helped everybody by working out that it started with S. And then Phil trying so hard to say basically what's the second letter of the first word, and getting eventually that it was I, so you knew it was 60 something. But his question, confusing the person, was so funny. Like I thought the person understood it because he did give a yes or no answer, But when Alex said like, oh, I think they've misunderstood that, I was immediately like, oh, I get where he's going with like, and the fact that he had to ask it again and he just was like, I don't know what you mean, and finally got it, I thought was very funny. And I think if I was in the studio audience, I would have just been cracking up. I just thought it was really funny how strongly Phil felt about asking this particular question and also making the joke again about Roman numerals, which I did think was very funny. But yeah, I thought this was so funny. I would really like to see the full 1 hour, however long it is, just to see how annoyed they get, like if anyone is like getting exasperated. I feel like if they were, they probably would have put it in the show, but I'd have to see what kind of questions they were asking. But eventually Phil managed to guess that it was 63. And I love that Anya mentioning the fact that 63 was written all round the house, because I definitely remember, I think it was in the Guess the Number Alex had written down task that we had a few episodes ago. I remember seeing 63 quite a lot. And I thought it might play into that task, but then obviously it didn't. So it's nice to see it pop up here, and I like the dedication to like having hints and clues all around where they're doing this task, just to like get in their heads even more. So I thought that was really good, and I love that Anya like picked up on it. It's just a shame she didn't realise sooner. Because Phil wins this task, he wins the episode, like he jumps up really high. It's not a very high scoring episode, this one, but yeah, he does win the episode 2 in a row, which is very, very good. And then obviously we get to see Alex at the end in the Diana Revenge dress getting meat thrown at him, and I loved like it. I just thought it was a really funny end to the episode. But yeah, I thought this was really good. I like kind of there's some more controversial episodes with like scoring and things, but I think it was quite good the way it was done. I quite liked the lab task. I think it was fairly obvious where the open me sign was, although I guess you could argue that if you've done the rules that were on the task, you've done the task, but I think it was very obvious that there was something there and that it was not all what it seemed like the task. I think you've got to go into it questioning things a little bit, and also like the numbers with like saying 1 or 2. I definitely think it was a bit too strict, especially because like I think they've had arguments about this in previous seasons before, like whether it counts as a number or not if you're saying 1 but you mean it in a different way. But I think it made the task funnier, and I don't really think it had too much of an impact on the contestants' attempts. They only really slipped up once. After that, nobody really slipped up. So I thought it worked quite well in these attempts, but I'm sure we'll have these debates multiple times as we go along through the series and all the other series after this one, because there are always going to be things that are maybe a bit inconsistent or a bit too harsh, that we feel is a bit too harsh, but that's what makes it fun. It makes it interesting, I guess. So yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts. What do you think about this episode and these tasks? Did you enjoy this episode as well? And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, it really helps, and subscribe if you want to see more videos of Taskmaster. I'll have some more out for you soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!